Okay, so we'll just slowly get started and see where this takes us. And the first thing I want to say, first of all, thanks for joining. Karthik is going to do a recording of this, so just so that you know, if there's anything you would like to say or ask about or things like that you don't want to have recorded, let us know and we'll figure that out and we'll either cut it out or we can pause the recording and we'll take your questions while not recording. But just so that everyone is aware that we will be recording this call and publishing it onto YouTube. My name is Mikkel, and I am part of Fermyon. There are a few other Fermyon folks in this call. I see Karen, I see Michelle and Kate, I see Melissa as well, and I think we have a few guests joining us. If you want, you're welcome to come off mute and introduce yourself. You can use the chat if you want to. If not, that's also totally fine.
Hi everyone. Hey, my name is Aaron. I'm working as a DevOps engineer at Capgemini. Uh, I'm very much enthusiastic in WASM specifically. It was my major topic during my outreach internship. So I do make content regarding developer relations, developer advocacy. I also write blogs specifically related to DevOps and WASM. So yeah, that's about me. And I'm looking forward to the community meet.
Thanks, Aaron, and welcome. If anyone else would like to just do a quick introduction, feel free to come off mute or
I'll
add a few
go.
lines in the chat as well.
Hey everyone, I'm Karen. I am the head of community for Fermyon, and I joined in December, but this has been the first call in that, as a regional time in my time zone. And I used to work with a bunch of the Fermyon folks back when we were at Microsoft. So I'm excited to kind of be back with the crew, and hopefully you'll see me around a lot more.
Well, then let's start it. I prepared a little bit of content to begin with. The way that we usually do these community calls, just for anyone who's not been here before, is I'm going to do a little bit of a presentation and demo of what's happened since we did our last call back in, that must have been February. Sorry, I just had to check the month. So I'll do a little bit of demoing, talk about some of the new stuff we've been doing, potentially some of the stuff that's cooking and coming up later. And then we usually just open this up for a Q&A. So any topic that anyone wants to discuss, any questions you want to ask, we'll do that. Even if people bring some show and tell stuff they want to show and share with the rest, feel free to do so. For those who just joined late, we will be recording this call and we will be publishing it onto YouTube, just so you're aware, and let us know if there's anything you don't want us to share publicly that will be said or will be written in the chat as we go along. And feel free to use the chat even as I start my little presentation here in a short moment to ask questions along the way. I know, as I said, there are a few Fermyon folks on the call as well that can help monitor and reply to some of those things as we go along. Okay, so let's get started. I'll probably go ahead and share my screen in just a little bit. So since our last meeting back in February, we have been busy, and we have in particular been busy with spin releases. I should be sharing a screen now that you can all see. So not only have we released Spin version 090 back on February 21st, we also did release, let me see if I can find that one. There you go. We also released Spin 010 2 days ago, March 7th. So a lot have been cooking, and one of the reasons behind the fairly frequent releases of Spin that we've had over the last few months is that we are slowly cooking up for a Spin 1.0 release. So that will be our first major release of Spin. And part of what's in the 0.10 release announcement that Michelle did on this blog is also talking a little bit about what it is that we do around Spin 1.0 and how we build towards that. So definitely go ahead and check that out. I would highly recommend that you read through these release blogs, and there's some good content about what it is with Spin 1.0, and the project board that we have tracking all the work for Spin 1.0. But let's look a little bit at what actually went on in these releases. So 09, as I said, was released late February. And really big thing that we announced in Spin 0.9 is this built-in Spin key value support. Basically what it is that you have within your Spin applications the ability to persist data across the component executions in a key value store. I'll show it in a little bit how that works. It's built using it's an API that looks very much like the WASI KV API specification that is currently being under work. So there's a set of APIs in the WASI specification that will help standardize how within various WASI systems and WASI code that you can use certain external types of services or interact with other services. These specifications haven't really stabilized yet, but we are trying to sort of follow those as we go along with some of these implementations. There's a lot of good stuff there. You can see there's a link to the upstream proposal here. When I say WASI, and here it says WebAssembly, WASI is that WebAssembly system interface specification, which is part of the whole WebAssembly work. So sort of in the same role there. But definitely key value store was one of the big things that came out in 0.9. There's also some OCI integration, so integration with the Open Container Initiative registries, things like Docker Hub, GitHub Container Registry, ECR, ACR, those places, so that you can now distribute Spin applications using OCI. So all of that is good stuff that went on in 0.9. And if we quickly look at 0.10, and then I'll go ahead and do a little bit of demoing on these. Are you still seeing? You're still seeing 0.10. Okay, cool. What we did in 0.10 is there was some cleanup around how the whole logging works. I actually think it was earlier than 0.10 that we changed the experience of Spin up so that you don't have to put in the follow all flag anymore to actually get your application logs directly in the console, which is a huge improvement from my point of view. It's a small thing, but it's just so much easier. But we also give you easier control of where you want your logs to be run. And again, the whole OCI integration also got a little bit of a change in that now when you want to spin up an application, basically using the -- from or -f, you can either point to the spin.toml file you want to run that defines your application, or you can actually point directly to an OCI packaged Spin application sitting in a registry. There's a bunch of other stuff going on in 0.10 around deprecation. So the follow-all flag is being deprecated. Bindle is being deprecated, and we're sort of slowly cooking towards using OCI as we deploy Spin applications. It's not there yet, but we won't move Bindle support going forward. And those are some of the major things happening 09 and 0.10 so far. So let me just show you some of these things in a little demo here. I will have to go and change window. And let me go here. Okay, you should see a terminal now. Is that correct? Yeah. And you can all see the screen size of the, what do you say? Zoom is okay? Zoom is good. Okay. Let me know if there's anything there. Okay, so the first thing that I want to show, that was actually the thing I didn't talk about in the, well, let's do this other one first. We know we had the way that we can now run Spin applications directly from registries. So I have a Spin application that I had built and that I pushed into a GitHub Container Registry. And basically what it enables me to do is simply directly run a Spin application from a registry. obviously run on my local machine, but as I do spin up and point to that application in my registry, it's being pulled down and I'm able to host that on my machine and use it directly here. So you can see how that spin application, which is it's just a small JavaScript application answering to my API calls, to my HTTP requests, is being run directly from GitHub Container Registry. So that's sort of a quick first one to show you here in terms of how that works. Another big thing about the key value store, I also want to show you, but I want to show that to you by using our new Python SDK. That's actually another thing that we released in between, I think it was in between 09 and 010, an experimental version of being able to write spin applications using Python. There is a really good blog post about that, which Joel Dice wrote, and I'm just going to put a link in the chat so you all have that. And what I'm going to show you here is really just the tutorial that Joel sort of put together in the blog and how that works, and then we can talk a little bit about it along the way. So let me go and fire up my editor. So as we know, there's a spin.toml as we always have in these for every spin application. And if you have looked at these spin manifests before, you see we have this sort of built-in tooling configuration you can do in your spin application manifest, which is, basically informs the spin build command what to do as you run spin build. And what you'll notice here is that we have a new plugin to spin called Hi to Wasm. If anyone has been familiar with or looked at our JavaScript SDK, we have a similar type of plugin that basically helps compile from JavaScript to WebAssembly. And obviously what this does is compiles from Python to WebAssembly. So that's part of what we released in that SDK, is to have that utility so your Python code can be compiled to WebAssembly. The code that's been written here sort of shows the full coverage of the Python SDK at this point in time. Again, this is fairly experimental, but we were able to read environment variable. We're able to do outbound HTTP requests where we have to configure this allowed HTTP host to say what endpoints the spin application can reach. This is part of this whole WebAssembly capability-based security model that, we have to specifically allow what the component can do. And then we have this key value store. So any spin application today can use a key value store called default. That's sort of a convention we've done here in the first few experimentation rounds we do with key value stores. So what I've done here is basically saying that the high HTTP component has access to the key value store called default. So as soon as we put that in, we get a key value store that we can also use here locally. So let's take a look at the coding here. So this is the end of the tutorial in the blog that's posted, and I highly recommend you go and read it. It's a really good blog post, and it's a really good tutorial. What we're going to do to begin with here in the Python is we use an HTTP_send command, which is basically part of the spin HTTP, as you can probably see up in line 1 here, that we're importing from spin HTTP. We're importing HTTP send, which gives us the ability to do outbound HTTP requests. So we're going to go and do a request, and we are using the environment variable URL, which is the one that you saw over in the TOML file. So the one that you have right here. So that's the one that, we're actually setting an environment variable called URL, and that's what we pick up here in the code. So we can read those environment variables from within our Python code. So what is happening in the code is that there's a library called TOML that we use in Python. And we basically go and read in the response from the request that we made in line number 9. Any Python library that will rely on native code, so pandas and NumPy, a lot of the ML stuff, all of those type of things, we cannot run those in the SDK today. We are fully aware that's a limitation, and we are working on how to fix that. But currently, that's not possible. Thanks everyone for joining. We hope to see you again. We're going to do this again in a month. And again, feel free to come with something you either want to show, some questions you want to ask, things you want to discuss. We'll definitely make sure that we are here. It's the second Thursday of the month. Next time is going to be a time that's more friendly for European, African, Asian, Oceanian time zones than this. So may not see the crowd who's here today, but then we'll hopefully see some new faces. But thanks everyone for joining, and hope you have a great rest of the day.